Peace, mercy, and blessings of God be upon you. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, praise be to God, and peace and blessings be upon the messenger of God. O God, there is nothing easy except what you make easy, and you make sorrow easy if you will. O God, teach us what benefits us, and benefit us with what you have taught us, and increase us in knowledge. Make all our deeds purely for your noble countenance, and do not let anyone else have any part in them. O Lord of the worlds, my Lord, expand my breast for me and ease my task for me and untie the knot from my tongue so that they may understand my speech. This is the 15th session of the prophetic biography. Upon its owner be the best of prayers and purest peace. We ask God, the blessed and exalted, to benefit us and you through it, and to gather us all in the shade of his throne, and with his prophet and chosen one. May God's prayers and peace be upon him. We are still at the most critical moment in the prophetic biography. Pausing at this critical moment in the prophetic biography is a necessary pause for understanding this biography. I have mentioned, and I repeat, that whoever does not truly understand this moment will not understand how the prophet, may God's prayers and peace be upon him, was a fighter and how he faced severe difficulties. The biography itself means that we are now in a society where other opinions, other parties, other movements, other ideas can emerge. So, if you don't understand why this particular idea was so shocking to the disbelievers of Quraysh, then you and grasp it. You'll feel that Quraysh will feel that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, called for something that could be accepted or rejected, something that could be tolerated. You'll feel that Quraysh, what does that mean? That they are rigid or extremist people. You and understand why all this trouble is about. What is the difference between monotheism and polytheism? Truth is, the difference between monotheism and polytheism is something that people in secular societies don't understand, because whether you are Muslim, or disbeliever, or atheist, or Christian, or Jewish, this is an issue that people in secular societies don't understand. Why is it even a problem as long as everyone is in the state, has the right of citizenship, and is committed to the Constitution and the law? Therefore, the truth is that this moment, the moment of the call and the public declaration, is what I call the most dangerous moment in the biography. We spoke about prophethood last time and mentioned that in order to grasp this moment and try to understand it, we considered two aspects of the prophet's peace and blessings be upon him side, and we said that at that time he possessed four things: a noble lineage, a glorious history, a moral message, and a number of followers who adhered to him during the 3 years of his private mission. We mentioned that the prophet theoretically had some alternatives, such as launching a nationalist, moral, or class-based movement. However, all these principles ultimately resulted in replacing evil with evil and corruption with corruption. Starting with religion is a fundamental beginning for reforming people. We shouldn't replace a Persian or Roman tyrant with an Arab tyrant, nor should we replace a rich class with a poor one, because if the latter becomes rich, it will become like it or even worse in evil. As for the moral message, we mentioned that by its very nature, only a few people respond to it, and it is practically ineffective in life. The greatest proof of this is our current reality, which is full of human rights organizations, women's rights organizations, children's rights organizations, animal rights organizations, and environmental rights organizations, yet practically all of these are merely counting and tallying the dead, the violated, the wounded, and the oppressed. Then we mentioned how the Quraysh saw this moment, and how they heard the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, say, "There is no God but God." They understood from the very first moment that this statement matter, rather, It was a call to change and transform the system upon which the Quraysh society was based. Therefore, the difference between all these religions and all these ideas that the Quraysh accepted and the Islam brought by Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, is the challenge to the system. This challenge to the system must be understood. This statement, "There is no God but God," was not just a new idea. Rather, if we try to put it in our modern terms, it was a departure from the Constitution, a departure from the law, a departure from traditions, a departure from customs, a departure from established matters. That is why they confronted them. That is why the Quraysh confronted this call more than what I faced. Any other call clear? Okay, here comes an important question. The Prophet, may God bless him and grant him peace, used to say to the Quraysh, "Worship God, you have no God other than him, and abandon the worship of idols. These idols do not hear, do not harm, do not see and do not benefit, right and no one has any doubt about that, my brothers. Idols are true, but idols neither hear nor see, they neither benefit nor harm. Does anyone have any doubt about that? Isn't this story crystal clear to us? Clearly, the matter seems self-evident. How can a person worship something he made with his own hands? If he were hungry, the necessity of life would overcome him, and he would eat the God he had worshipped earlier. We mentioned this when we talked about the affairs of the pre-Islamic era. So, the idea seems clear and simple. A person should be astonished when he finds that idols found those who defended them, even those who fought for them. Isn't this something astonishing? Idols made of stone and wood found those who defended them and those who fought for them and were killed for them. All the wars of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, were wars with whom? With those who believe in idols and statues. Well, my friends, we must delve deeper. Were there Arabs, or were people in general this foolish and ignorant? No, here we must reflect on this. Any society is generally divided between a large, wealthy, and influential minority, and a large number of ordinary people. If we try to examine this large minority, the minority with money, wealth, and prestige, this minority was defending the idols. Why? What did they benefit from? Did the idols control the ducks? Yes, these idols were not merely stones that neither benefit nor harm. These idols were the symbol of the existing system. The idols were the symbol of the existing system, the nature of the existing system, the form of the existing system. It is true that the idols neither hear nor see. It is true that they neither benefit nor harm, but for the powerful, they also neither command nor forbid, neither impose nor punish, right? And so, who will speak in the name of the idols? Who will speak on behalf of the gods? Whose will govern the affairs of society? Considering that this is the will and desire of the gods, and the will of the gods, these powerful and influential figures remains a idols were not merely stones, they were a complete system. Therefore, these powerful and influential figures, the wealthy and powerful, see the removal of these idols not simply would, but rather as the removal of their very influence. And here, let's reflect on this. I mentioned it last time, the nature of societies, as Nietzsche says, is that law is the expression of the will of the powerful. The powerful, in the moment of their victory, enshrine their victory in law, so their interests are, quote, in law, in the Constitution, in legitimacy. Consequently, anyone who tries to tamper with the law is not actually tampering with a single article or a written document. They are tampering with the interests behind it. Therefore, in all schools of law, even Western ones, the citizen must obey the law, even if they believe it to be unjust, and indeed, we might discover later that the law is unjust, and will change it, but we won't pardon those who broke the law when it was in effect. There's a beautiful article by Sheikh Ibrahim al-Sakran, may God release him from captivity, called Obedience to the Ruler in Western Systems, Obedience to the Unjust Law in Western Systems. It's very good, you can refer to it and read it. The modern citizen, the citizen in the state, is obligated to obey the law, even if he sees it as unjust. Even if we discover, or the state itself discovers, that the law is unjust, it changes the law, but it doesn't pardon those who broke it. Okay, so if the interests that formed the law and the interests that formed the beliefs are threatened, when these beliefs are threatened, then the truth remains of the path between the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and the Muslims wasn't just about wood or stones. That is, between the polytheists and the disbelievers. It wasn't just a fight over what, or a mere conflict or clash over what, in terms of the meaning of wood and the meaning of stones. Rather, it was a struggle over who had authority, who held sovereignty. These idols have no authority, no vision. They don't say this is right and this is wrong. They don't say this is permissible and this is forbidden. Therefore, those in power and the influential ones are the ones who judge the truth, but under the cover of this system. That's it. Number one. And this is the most important part. Number two, and this is a very important matter, no less than the first, is that my good people, even these great ones among them, with a passage of time, believe in these idols with true faith. And here we must pause at a great point regarding the uncle of the Prophet, may God bless him and grant him peace, Abu Talib. I mentioned last time that when the Prophet, may God bless him and grant him peace, gathered his family, as narrated by the biographers, and said to them, if I deceive the people, he said, the leader does not lie to his people. If I deceive all the people, I will not deceive you. If I lie to all the people, I will not lie to you. By God, I am the messenger of God, and you will not die as you sleep, nor will you be resurrected as you wake up. You will be rewarded for good with good and for evil with evil, and it is paradise forever or hell forever. Abu Lahab responded to him with a well-known response, but Abu Talib said, rather, proceed with what you see. By God, I will continue to protect you and prevent you, except that my soul does not agree with me to abandon the religion of Abu Muttalib. Well, based on what we have read and what we know about Abu Talib, my friends, Abu Talib sacrificed his influence and his status and faced conflict with his people for the sake of his nephew. Okay, and he defended him for 10 years. He died 10 years after the beginning of the Prophet's mission. Abu Talib, if Abu Talib here is not the man who supported his interests and influence through the existence of idols, but Elders of the community did not usually imagine that they were wrong. It became very difficult for them to comprehend that he lived his whole life on falsehood. It is very, very difficult, okay? And even until the end of his life, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, was on his deathbed saying to him, "Oh my uncle, say a word that I will bear witness for you before God. Say, there is no God but God." And around him were the people of Quraysh saying to him, "Abandon the religion of Abdul Muttalib, abandon the religion of Abdul Muttalib." Until he died, and he said, "Rather, I am on the religion of Abdul Muttalib." There is no one in all of history who benefited Islam as much as Abu Talib did. I mean, there is no person, non-Muslim or Muslim, who benefited Islam during this period as much as Abu Talib did. If we count, my friends, all the sacrifices will not reach the sacrifice that Abu Talib made when Islam was weak in its early days. I mean, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, lived for 10 years under the protection of whom? Why didn't he? Why did the people of Quraysh dare to do this? Only because of Abu Talib. No one else could serve Islam as Abu Talib did, but Abu Talib's soul could not leave the religion of his fathers and forefathers. The beginning of interests created beliefs, and beliefs over time become beliefs even if there are no interests. Right? Interests initially produced beliefs, but beliefs, if they become established over time, become beliefs even if interests cease to exist. Therefore, even if you consider his statement, rather, he is on the religion of Abul Muttalib, he cannot imagine that this great and venerable master who imposed his authority in Mecca was on falsehood. And Utbah bin Rabi'ah, when he speaks to the Prophet, may God bless him and grant him peace, as we will come to him, God willing, in its time, says to him, "O Muhammad, are you better or Abul Muttalib?" This is an embarrassing question, and we mentioned before in previous episodes that Abdul Muttalib was like those figures with a great history, historical heroes whom people fear to contradict. We mentioned, for example, that if we want to make the picture clearer, he would be like Abu Aziz in Saudi Arabia, Khomeini in Iran, or Ataturk in Turkey, someone whose disobedience is considered a crime. Therefore, Utbah said, "O Muhammad, are you better than Abdul Muttalib? If they are better than you, then they worshipped the gods you have denounced. If you are better than them, then speak up, we will listen to you." In other words, as we say in Egyptian dialect, show me what you can say. Can you say, "I am better than them"? The entrenchment of falsehood transforms it into a belief, even if the benefit is gone. If this happened with prominent figures, then it appears more intensely, more strongly, more deeply ingrained, and more evident among the general public. Look, my friends, there's a golden rule in human society: what is repeated becomes established. What is repeated becomes established. In very simple terms, any idea, no matter how fantastical, if you hear it often, you will believe it, no matter who you are. No one, and I mean no one, is exempt from this. Let me tell you, even with very simple examples, I remember, for example, back in our teenage years and before, you might hear a song for the first time and be put off by it. You wouldn't like it, but if you heard it repeatedly, Heard it in the street, you heard it in class. What would happen? You might be forced to accept it, and you might even become attached to it, even though you initially disliked it. How many times in your life have you met someone and disliked them, only to become accustomed to them after sitting with them, eating and drinking with them, perhaps even loving and becoming attached? Every thought, every single thought, as long as it's repeated, takes root. That's why the Egyptian proverb says, nagging is more powerful than magic. This is true, and of course, in our modern world, now that we have media outlets, these media have proven this rule beyond any doubt. I remember during Obama's election, a poll was conducted in American society asking whether people are more influenced by words or actions. You know, in the past, our ancestors used to say, the action of one man is worth more than the words of 1,000 men. This saying might have been true then, but now this statistic says that ultimately, people are more influenced by words than actions. Therefore, even the most cruel, brutal, and criminal people can, through a media campaign, a polishing campaign, and some justifications, the soundtrack, the cameras, and the songs can erase his bad history. This is a fact. I'm telling you, even a foreign statistic shows that people are more influenced by words than actions. Some even say that American presidential speechwriters count pauses, stops, and moments when a candidate should cry during their speech. Yes, and then, of course, what about the applause, the slow-motion shots, and the accompanying music? Let me tell you something. Everyone is watching football now. I don't know if the current tournament, the Asian Cup, is over or not. I want you to try watching a football match without sound. Turn the sound off and watch it without sound. I guarantee you won't be able to sit through an hour and a half of watching the match without sound. So what happens when you turn the sound on? What makes this match so unbearable? It becomes a battle of wits, with commentators competing to bestow titles and accolades and dangerous and unprecedented, and you're writing history, and you create geography, and they excel at it. What is this, my brothers, my good people? Every idea, no matter how nonsensical and mythical, if repeated, becomes entrenched and established. That's why idols have defenders. That's why idols have defenders, because these people grew up in an environment where their fathers and mothers, sheikhs and teachers, wise men, knights and warriors, all worshipped these idols, offered vows to them, and slaughtered sacrifices before them. So you come along and say these idols neither hear nor see, neither benefit nor harm. Leave them and break them. You are as if you are breaking something inside a person, something upon which their very being is built. It's clear, therefore, the elders defend the idols, because the idols are a symbol of a system that preserves their interests, and some of the elders have been in power for so long that they defend the idols even if the benefit is lost, and the general public follows the elders among them, and what is repeated to them becomes established and fixed in their souls. So, how can you understand how fierce the battle was? In the Mecca defended idols, something No one would imagine idols would ever defend. If we consider it from the perspective of the Quraysh, what interests would compel them to defend idol worship? First thing, and it's very clear, is influence, leadership, and power. You know, the last thing to leave the hearts of the righteous is the love of leadership. Leadership is the ultimate pleasure and desire. Some people crave women, and leadership brings them women. Some crave wealth, and leadership brings wealth. Some crave fame, and leadership brings fame. Leadership is the ultimate pleasure and desire. That's why you find people abstaining from food, drink, and clothing, but if their position is challenged, they stand up in awe. You know Hind bint al-Numan, the daughter of the king of Seerah. She had a verse of poetry that became proverbial: while we rule the people, and the matter was in our hands. We are among them, a market, and we are treated fairly. What does that mean? You say, this world is treacherous and turns against its people. So, look at what we've been moved from. We've been moved from where we used to rule people and the matter was in our hands. If we are among them, a market, then we have become like them, treated fairly. It means someone can complain to us, and we will listen to him, accept his complaint, and take what is rightfully ours.
سيدنا معاوية طبعا مشهور بالحلم، والحلم في السلاطين والملوك نادر جدا أن تجد القادر على البطش حليما.
This is something neither presidents nor kings can tolerate. Our master Muawiyah had a very profound saying that expresses the Sultan's mentality. Our master Muawiyah was, of course, famous for his forbearance, and forbearance among sultans and kings is very, very rare. It is very rare to find someone capable of striking yet forbearing. So, our master Muawiyah, when someone dared to challenge him, and when he became even more audacious, he said, "Oh so-and-so," the Sultan becomes angry like a child and strikes like a lion. This Sultan is easily provoked like a child, but when he strikes like a lion. It is something that kings cannot tolerate, giving up their gains. That is why Ibn Khaldun says, a king is rarely surrendered without a fight. And if the people are employees, they fight over their positions in the company, their positions in the factory. So how can someone who has the power to command and forbid be expected to do so? A first interest threatened by the removal of idols is the interest of leadership and power. This is important. You tell someone, for example, someone who owns £1 million or a huge property, and then someone comes along and proves that this land is his and this property is his. Would people allow themselves to submit to the truth and give it up? Well, if this is about £1 million or property, what about the country? Have you ever seen anyone give up a property or an apartment? Yes, there. Philosopher-physician, that's a different situation. He gives it up willingly. Laughter. Anyway, the fundamental point is that those in positions of power don't accept giving up their gains. The interest is the interest of trade. You now have 360 idols around the Kaaba, and one of the forms of leadership among the Arabs was that each tribe had its own idol worshipped in the Kaaba. So it's as if we're in a gathering of gods here, or the great temple. Okay, and then what? We are making idols. We have the Kaaba alone, which has 360 idols, but the Arab had an idol for every tribe and an idol for every house. now have a huge industry, which is the manufacture of idols, and we have a group of skilled artists and sculptors. What is any industry that is required? What must you develop its skills? Like now any Islamic candidate who runs in any country, the first question is, what will you do about alcohol? What will you do about tourism? These things are the foundation of the economy. You're not going to destroy the Egyptian economy or any other economy, whatever it may be. But the point here is that commercial interests also make even those who saw and believed that what Muhammad brought was a truth. That truth, by God, is harmful now, harmful and costly. God mentioned this in his book, saying, "And they said, we will follow the guidance with you, and we will be snatched away from our land." So acknowledge that it is guidance. This is a recurring theme, even among contemporary people. Some of you who read memoirs or interact with sheikhs who met with presidents and kings, and this statement is made to them, they say, "So now you want me to implement Sharia law, and America will leave me alone if I follow the guidance. With you, we will be snatched away from our land." Therefore, there is also a commercial interest. How do we stop this huge industry, the idol-making industry, upon which the Quraysh economy revolves? How do we stop the alcohol industry? How do we stop the gambling industry? If you want to close down the places that gamble or engage in adultery, what will you find? You will find many people who come out with an economic motive. This is also one of the interests that Quraysh threatens. Okay, the third matter is the threatened political status. Now put yourself in the place of the leaders of Quraysh. And a message of invitation came, and they understood from the first moment that it was a political invitation and not a religious invitation, and that it is a religion and a state. Okay, I am now actually in leadership and actually in command, and the Arabs make pilgrimage to the house and venerate Quraysh and do not dare to oppose it. With worldly material logic, why should I accept a message that provokes the enmity of the Arabs against me? You know what happens when a state is established in an environment that does not accept it. Wars and conflicts. For example, when the French Revolution happened in Europe and called for a republic, all the kings of Europe cooperated against it because they were kings of what? Even if there were two enemy kings, they could cooperate. The idea that seeks to abolish monarchy entirely and establish a republic is what led to the Arab Spring revolutions. Everyone with a vested interest, even if the revolutions didn't threaten them, conspired to suppress them. Quraysh, being the leader of the Arabs, why would they undertake and carry a message that would provoke all these Arabs? Their political standing was threatened, and the leadership of the Arabs would pass to others who would defend idols. Furthermore, they would be drawn into wars. That's why I mentioned, and I repeat, the words of Utbah ibn Rabi'ah when he said, "Oh, people, leave this man alone. If the Arabs defeat him, you will have been spared by others. If he prevails over the Arabs, his glory will be your glory, his kingdom your kingdom, and you will be the happiest of people because of him." The Arab understood from the very first moment of the words, "There is no God but God," that it was a call to both religion and state. That's why Abu al-Haytham ibn al-Tayyan, as mentioned in Al-Insaf, said, at the second pledge of Karbar, "O people, consider what you are pledging allegiance to this man for. You are pledging allegiance to him to wage war against all people, both red and black." And the Prophet, when he called, he presented himself to the tribes, saying, "Who will take me to his people and protect me until I deliver the message of my Lord?" The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, as we mentioned in the public call, said, "Say there is no God but God, and you will rule over the Arabs and non-Arabs." call of Islam,
مستسلمة وراضية بالحياة في ظل سيادة
submission,
أخرى.
surrender, or contentment with life under another's rule. Rather, it is about the rule of God, the blessed and exalted, on this earth. Therefore, my friends, if we understand this, we will understand how fierce and intense the battle was, because it was a battle over a system, not merely a battle over an idea. Now, the important question is, are there idols in our lives now? Laughter. This is what happens.
لو أنك ترى إنه الأصنام دي مجرد شيء كان
If you see idols as something that existed in the past and is gone, you might not see that our world now needs Islam. Not all of us. Yes, now.
هنا يعني إذا كان تصورنا عن الإسلام
Yes, indeed. But here, if our perception of Islam is that it is against idols, which are stones and wood, then Islam is a phase that has ended. And we all, praise be to God, say, there is no God but God, and Muhammad is the messenger of God, and we pray, and we fast completely. The truth is, this wasn't the battle. That's why I tell you, this moment is the most dangerous moment in the Prophet's biography, the most dangerous moment in understanding Islam and in understanding this conflict surrounding it. Now, how do you recognize an idol? An idol is something that cannot be touched. Anything you feel is untouchable, or you're going to talk about it. You're sensitive about your words. This is an idol in our real lives. This is in our real lives. As long as you're sensitive about talking about it, then there's a battle for dominance between this idol and Islam. The red line is good. This means polite and gentle expression. The red line, and thank God we have many red lines. For example, we have the lofty judiciary, and the judiciary. No one dares to comment on the rulings of the judiciary. The lofty judiciary is the great Egyptian army. Let's not say the body. I mean any great army that cannot be touched. Anything that has great, lofty, honorable, and integrative behind it. So, anything you're sensitive about talking about is like an idol. I mean, not to that extent. Laughter, absolutely, and even more so. There are the things we see people slaughtering for now. National borders, national security, national soil, the flag, the state flag. These are things people are slaughtering and dying for, even the sacred soil. Anyone who doesn't realize that Islam, which establishes sovereignty for God and makes God and His Messenger the only red line, anyone who doesn't realize that Islam is in a battle with these contemporary idols and false gods is in fact not paying attention to a meaning that pervades our real lives. And I remind you that Orientalists and Westerners understand this much better than Muslims, and this is a consistent fact. For example, if any of you have read Henry Kissinger's book, *World Order*, Henry Kissinger died about 2 months ago. His book is explicit that this world he's talking about threats, of course, but in reality, he's talking about the Islamic threat as an unsolvable threat. Because Sharia is intertwined with faith, other nations can worship the sun or the moon and live their lives according to Western laws or laws imposed by the West. But in Islam, Sharia and faith are inextricably intertwined. There's no escaping it. Henry Book World Order. Now I'll mention something in Montesquieu, the famous French philosopher. In his book The Spirit of the Laws, his most famous work, says that the pervasiveness of Islam in the lives of Muslims is unparalleled in any other religion. Samuel Huntington mentioned in his book The Clash of Civilizations that Islam is the only religion that has called into question the survival of the West, and it has done so at least twice. A connection between creed and Sharia is one of the greatest advantages of Islam, and for non-Muslims, it is one of the greatest dilemmas of Islam. Their attempts to create a moderate Islam, an Islam compatible with modernity, a modern, democratic, civil Islam. All these are titles written in books and published. This is one of the most severe, unresolved dilemmas, because in Islam, creed and Sharia are intertwined. For example, if you read Seerah Ashura, its subject, my friends, is the Islamic political system. The most important aspect is this sovereignty. And so it began, and we revealed to you and to those before you, Allah, the exalted in might, the wise. To him belongs whatever is in the heavens and whatever is on the earth. He is the most high, the most great. Then she came and mentioned the differences among people regarding what was revealed to them, and thus we have revealed to you an Arabic Quran that you may warn the mother of cities and those around it. He has ordained for you of religion what he enjoined upon Noah, and that which we have revealed to you. Or do they have partners who have ordained for them a religion for which Allah has not given permission, and their affair is conducted by consultation among themselves? But when you read Surah Ash-Shura, you feel that you are in a system in which life, the universe, monotheism, angels, and sustenance are linked to the political system. This is an important point to understand that Islam, in its essence, is a transformative movement and a reformist message. Therefore, we say that the fundamental difference between Islam and any other system is the difference of sovereignty, the difference of authority. This difference, my friends, has only two possibilities. Either man is subject to God or he is subject to other human beings. These human beings are hidden behind systems and beliefs, hidden behind idols, hidden behind laws, hidden behind constitutions, hidden behind a God who was. But in the end, in any other system, human beings are enslaved by other human beings. This is the statement of Rabbi Ibn Amir, may God be pleased with him, when he spoke to the ruler, saying, God, we were sent to bring people out of the worship of people and into the worship of God, the Lord of people. This was a very clear mission in the minds of the companions. Adi bin Hatim was surprised when he heard God Almighty say, they have taken their rabbis and monks as lords, besides God. He said, O Messenger of God, we did not worship them, we did not take them as lords. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, do they not make lawful what is unlawful and make unlawful what is lawful? He said, yes. He said, that is your worship of them. Truth remains that the Lord, the true God, is the one who owns the law, who legislates, who can say, this is right and this is wrong, this is true and this is false, this is lawful and this is unlawful, this is legal and this is illegal, this is constitutional and this is unconstitutional. This is the truth of the sovereign. Now, if a person leaves the worship of God, he is certainly entering into the worship of people. There is no third possibility. For example, if a person now decides to declare his atheism, when he decides to declare his atheism, what will he do? In his life, he will break free from the Islamic concepts of halal and haram. Yes, halal and haram refer to Islamic law. but will he break free from the customs, traditions, and laws of the society he lives in? No, he won't. So what has he done? He has moved from servitude to God to servitude to the society, the state, the environment he lives in. If a short clothes, whose clothes will she wear? After her atheism, the expensive ones from the West, or will she wear Indian or African clothes? If she were in India or Africa, she would wear Indian clothes. That's why Ibn al-Qayyim says that differentiation is necessary. Whoever doesn't differentiate by divine decree, meaning the distinction between things, the standard of right and wrong, halal and haram, is necessary for every human being and every society. Every person is born into this, but whoever doesn't differentiate by divine decree, differentiates by man-made things, either through the policies of a ruler above these are the laws of society or the state, or through personal taste or the desires of others, something he personally finds appealing or that is made appealing by media and cultural pressure around him. So, in the end, no, every person has a reference point. Every person has someone to whom he submits according to custom, whether he knew this or not, whether he felt this or not. The whole difference between Islam and other religions is that this is all for the sake of God, the Blessed and Exalted. Therefore, you will find that the disbelievers of Quraysh truly understood Islam better than many contemporary Muslims. That is why they attacked it so fiercely. Many Muslims do not grasp such meanings, nor do they feel them. This is a virtue added to the early Muslims, because they understood that this call, the call of there is no God but God, encompasses all these meanings, which led them to separate from their people and into conflict with their people, their fathers, their mothers, and their history. This, my friends, is a difficult and very arduous matter for the soul. Imagine someone like our master Khalid ibn al-Walid, a man who read in the book of God that his father was in hell and he who created him alone and granted him abundant wealth and sons present with him and paved the way for him. Yet he desires more. No, indeed, he was obstinate toward our verses. Then God, the Blessed and Exalted, said, I will cast him into hell. And what will make you know what hell is? It leaves nothing and spares nothing. Ikramah ibn Abi Jahl was aware that he believed his father was in hell. I mentioned to you previously that our master Abu Hudayfah ibn Utbah ibn Rabi'ah saw before him in the battle of Badr the killing of his father, his brother, and his uncle. This is a great virtue added to the early predecessors, that they understood this call, believed in it, and joined it from the beginning despite its burdens. Now, the important thing is, if we contemplate the Holy Quran, we will see that the disbelievers of Quraysh did not object to the existence of God. The Holy Quran is full of verses that say, and if you ask them, who created the heavens and the earth, they will surely say, God. And if you ask them, who created the heavens and the earth, they will surely say, the Exalted in might, the All-Knowing created them. And if you ask them, who created them, they will surely say, God. So, the disbelievers of Quraysh did not object to what? To the existence of God and to the fact that God created. What did they object to? On two matters, that God commands and forbids, and that God will hold people accountable on the day of resurrection. They did not want to believe in the day of resurrection. Therefore, you will find a long dialogue in the Holy Quran with them on the issue of seeking and the hereafter. Therefore, Islam came with belief in God and the hereafter. This is a very important matter. The disbelievers of Quraysh did not object to anyone believing, and they themselves believed that God exists and that God created the heavens and the earth. In some offers, He meant a day, yes, but this was within the framework of bargaining. But now, before we enter into bargaining at all, what shocked them from the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, was not that he said God exists or that God is the Creator. Told them there is no God but God. By God, you will die as you sleep, and you will be resurrected as you wake up, and you will be rewarded for good with good and for evil with evil. And here you will find what? This means that the disbelievers of Quraysh used all their talents to try to deny the day of judgment. They weren't trying to deny the existence of God as much as they were trying to deny the existence of the day of judgment. And in the narration, it is said that either Akbar ibn Abi Maitar or Al-As ibn Wa'il came to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, with decayed bones, rubbed them in his lap, and said, "Do you claim that your Lord will bring these back to life after they have become dust?" This is the scientific method, the scientific tendency, the scientific approach, as understood by the disbelievers of Quraysh. How could this become a human being again? So God, blessed and exalted is He, revealed His words, and He presents for us an example and forgets His own creation. He forgets that He was created from a sperm drop. He presents for us an example and forgets His own creation. He says, "Who will give life to bones while they are dust?" Say, He will give them life who produced them. He will give them life who produced them the first time, and He is of all creation. Knowing, He who made for you fire from the green tree in your ordinary life. The tree is green and the plant is green, but this green tree turns into firewood and ignites into fire, and from it you kindle your fire. Is not He who created the heavens and the earth able to? He creates the like of them. Yes, and He is the all-knowing Creator. His command, when He intends a thing, is only that He says to it, "Be," and it is. So glory be to Him in whose hand is the dominion of all things, and to Him you will be returned. And in a verse of Surah Maryam, our Lord, blessed and exalted is He, says, and man says, "When I have died, will I then be brought forth alive?" Does man not remember that we created him before, when he was nothing? Belief in the day of judgment was a greatest challenge because, as you know, in Greek philosophy, they say, in a famous saying called the God of Aristotle or the God of Plato, "Glory be to God, I was mistaken, but I think it was Aristotle." Who is this Aristotle? Aristotle had a viewpoint that said that God is very, very, very great, to the point that He is greater than to think about His creation or to manage His affairs. So this universe is to God like a clock to a clockmaker. A clockmaker perfected it and put in it its laws that run it, then left it. He has no relation to it. Now, this God is a good God to all people. By the way, why? He has no presence, neither command nor prohibition, and therefore no reckoning. But belief in the day of judgment makes God, blessed and exalted is He, the one who commands and prohibits, the one who assigns and reckons. So, my good people, we must understand that what does this mean? I mean, if we are trying to explain it now in our contemporary terms, this means that the disbelievers of Quraysh were secularists. Because he has no objection to you being a believer in God, or even he himself being a believer in God. Now, in our contemporary world, many secularists see that it is not contrary to Islam and some of them call themselves liberals according to the Sunnah of God and his messenger. Laughs. Okay, he sees secularism as a way to manage life, and religion is between man and his Lord. So, if I were to pretend now that the people of Quraysh were speaking in today's language, what would they say? Imagine with me. If we had an official spokesperson or laughs speaking on behalf of the Quraysh, what would they say? He says, by God, we are in the state of Mecca, a state that accommodates all religions, sects, and denominations, and we have no problem with Muhammad having his own religion. But why are we fighting Muhammad? Because he wants to force people to worship one God without partners, and this is contrary to rights and freedoms and contrary to the constitution established by the great founders of the Quraysh, whom everyone acknowledges for their wisdom and intellect. And then, it seems, by God, that it's a sectarian or tribal tendency. The Banu Hashim want to seize power and take control for themselves, instead of having a national coalition government where everyone is present and governs together. As I told you, this is a disruption of social peace and a blow to national unity. Right? All of this is fine. We'll continue next time, God willing. I ask God Almighty to teach us what benefits us, to make what He has taught us beneficial, and to increase us in knowledge.